All right, everybody, welcome back to Hawks Podcast. Thank you for tuning in again. Recording this on Sunday, November 30th. And my guest this week, thank you so much for joining me. It's Dr. Melanie Matheu, who everyone knows from TikTok as Laughter and Light. Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, great to be here. Good to see you again, too.
It's good to see you again, too. So I want to talk to you today about, tomorrow's the 1st of December. Winter is certainly here where you're at in Chicago,
Yes.
with the
We've
snow
got a
that you
lot of
guys
snow.
have been getting. And so I wanted to start off by get an update on what we can expect for cold and flu season, things that you've seen happening in other countries. And so let's just dive in. What are your thoughts on what this flu season is going to be like?
Yeah, we are, by all measures, in for a nasty influenza season, and there's a very specific reason why. When you're looking at severity of upcoming influenza seasons, you can look at other countries because the Southern Hemisphere, Australia being one of the most populated areas there, will have their flu season just before we do. And so they had a record-setting flu season, more diagnosed hospital lab confirmed influenza cases than ever before in history.
Hmm.
It was pretty nasty. Killed more people than COVID in Australia, influenza did this year.
Well, so, I mean, so much for COVID being just like the flu.
Right? Just like the flu doesn't mean it's okay. Yeah,
God.
yeah. Oh, man, there's so much to talk about there. But,
Yeah.
so Australia's pretty bad. Japan declared an epidemic, a flu epidemic, about 5 weeks earlier than their flu season, really gets started. And
Really?
then UK is kind of getting ready for a nasty flu season as well. They've already started their flu season. We are now just ticking up. The US, for some reason, we haven't started, showing severe influenza yet. But by all measures, wastewater is starting to go up for influenza A, as well as some areas in the US, and I can pull up that data if we want to look at that. So
Okay,
let me
so why did Australia see such a dramatic increase?
Great question. Yeah, so kind of towards the end of their flu season, well, I would say middle-ish to end, one of the influenza A variants, H3N2, there's H1N1 and H3N2 that we vaccinate for. Their H3N2 had accumulated a significant number of mutations so that it gets around the antibody-based protection, the binding protein that kind of can neutralize the virus, gets around that antibody protection. So there's no way to stop or slow infection unless your memory T cells kick in, and that takes 3 to 5 days or so before that part
Mhm.
of the immune system gets activated, even if you are vaccinated. So, the immune system, I've seen some people say this in my comments, and I like that comment a lot, so I'm gonna repeat it. The immune system can be thought of as kind of like in a race against a virus, right? And so anything you have to kind of teach the immune system how to recognize a virus, how to slow it down, reduce an amount of virus proliferation in your body, anything that can do that, will, kind of get you a head start. So vaccination's one way, prior infection's another. Both of them combined are great. But when a virus mutates around that protection, it regains that head start. And so it landed a lot of people in the hospital and infected a lot of people as well.
Oh. So it spreads easier and there's more severe infection?
Yeah, so it'll spread easier because people's immune systems won't be able to control the viral load. So imagine if someone sneezes on you and they've had the flu vaccine. They don't have as much virus to spread. It's not gonna spread as quickly. Someone
Mhm.
sneezes on you and they've got a raging case of the flu, you're way more likely to get it, right? It's a higher viral load, higher virus exposure. So yeah, it's gonna spread more easily, spread more quickly. Fewer people are gonna have any kind of immunity to it that'll keep them from going to the hospital. But the flu shot, don't despair. is actually still reducing hospitalization. So for adults, it's not that great. It's about 30 to 40%, but it's
Yeah.
better than nothing. Like, I'll take it, right? I don't wanna go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for kids, it's about 70, 75%. So for kids,
Okay.
it's kind of important.
Yeah, I got my flu shot about a month ago. Um,
And doing what you do with my hair, I just have to point that out. It wasn't, like, sitting right.
I'm intentionally
I
not
know you
touching mine right
have
now.
that.
So, all right. So then in Australia, in
Yeah.
Japan, um, I mean, so they're seeing a higher number of hospitalizations?
Yeah. In Australia, influenza A, H3N2 specifically, killed, more people than SARS-CoV-2 their last flu
And
season.
that's COVID. So, and COVID's still out there, right?
Yeah, COVID is still out there. COVID numbers are not, trending higher too quickly. I mean, it depends on where you look in the US. So, like, kinda northern Midwest area where I am, it's starting to trend up in the wastewater. It's there for sure. And around some big cities, it's there, kind of the Northeast, there's some COVID being detected. Maine, let's see, Maine, New Jersey, specifically a little bit of Vermont. It's kinda high in that area, but it's not high across the whole US right now. Like, it's still really low in California, still pretty low
Yeah.
in the South. That
I just, I mean, it's anecdotal, but it just kind of feels to me that for most people, COVID has just kind of left the American consciousness right now.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people just don't wanna think about it anymore, and, that's because we all kinda lived through this collective trauma of being
Yeah.
locked down, seeing people die, seeing people get hospitalized, and really actually kind of a lot of us were scared whether or not you want to admit it. A lot of people died from SARS-CoV-2, and then you have this kinda knee-jerk backlash of anger, dissatisfaction, and we're seeing that play out in how our administration is now running a lot of the agencies that protected people's health during this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, no longer considered a reportable illness by the CDC, and so,
Is
you
that
know
because it's no longer a reportable illness or because of who is now running the CDC?
well, I got to the bottom of that earlier, and I'd love to say it's because I'm annoyed with the people running the CDC because they are not career professionals. They do not have experience in these areas. But
Yeah.
when a virus kind of becomes endemic, like RSV, it's not considered quote unquote reportable anymore. That doesn't mean all tracking is gone, but they don't track it quite the same way they would a novel influenza virus, if you will, or
Okay.
measles.
Um, so what are things that people should be doing to prepare for this flu season? How can they make sure that they and their families are as safe as they can be from this?
Yeah. Get vaccinated. That's really like a great way to make sure that if you get influenza, it's not going to be as severe as it could be. If you have people in your household who are immunocompromised or have a history of any sort of health related issues when it comes to respiratory viruses, talk to your doctor and maybe make sure you have Tamiflu on board. And you can get some over the counter influenza tests. They're kind of on the expensive side. They're not as accurate as like a PCR test. So just know that you might want to take it a couple times before you start your Tamiflu course if your doctor gives you that. There's ways to avoid family gatherings, requests that family members who are ill don't show up to family gatherings, mask wearing and hand washing. So masks do work. A lot of people want to try to pretend they don't. Sure, it's annoying to always have to remember one, but they absolutely work. Influenza doesn't spread as well as SARS-CoV-2, so anything you were doing to minimize SARS-CoV-2 spread will work for influenza. So, um,
Okay.
and then the only other difference though is that influenza lives on surfaces longer.
Hmm.
So you're more likely to get influenza from like a door handle and then like scratching your eye or your nose than you would SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 just doesn't live on surfaces as long as influenza does. So making sure that you wash your hands a lot
All right.
will help.
And then is the flu shot going to make me autistic?
No.
You sure? You sure about that?
I mean, God.
Okay, yeah. I
No,
mean,
there
it's
is
like, I mean, it's, I mean, if I don't make jokes, I'm going to lose it because it's just like, just in this conversation that you and I are having, it's like, when I hear the word vaccine and flu season and get vaccinated, and I think about, all of the potatoes in this country who are now,
Yeah.
just so anti-vaccine for literally everything. And we've got RFK Jr. running our nation's healthcare system.
Yeah.
It's just, um, and I've watched a lot of your videos. I've watched a lot of your husband's videos, Dr. Rubin, and he has spoken quite a bit about the CDC and the NIH and a lot of the people that are being put into these positions. And I know you made some videos about the ACIP, the vaccine committee.
Yeah. Yeah. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. So
Yeah.
that's just
And
one of a very long list. When I knew I was gonna talk to you this afternoon, I just sat down and started making a list of all the
mhm.
agencies, all the protocols, all the websites, everything that's just been gutted, changed, altered, who's been installed, who really, like, have and I'm just gonna say this, no legitimate professional right to be there as heads of these agencies, as major players in making health decisions for the entire United States. And it all came down to like this gut feeling, gut-wrenching feeling I have as a scientist, which is we used to, as scientists, argue on the premise that we were arguing data versus data,
Mhm.
or study versus study, or this data quality set was larger and was high quality. This data set was smaller, but even more high quality. Which one do we do? Like, we used to be arguing for people's health in some basis of reality. That is no longer happening. There is no
Yeah.
reality left that people are arguing from. It's just more like, hey, like, we've got over 200 studies that show no link between vaccines and autism. And then these ultra high quality 16 plus studies that are millions of children followed over decades. And there is no link between vaccination and autism, no causal link. And the people on the other side are like, yeah, well, we just think there is, and like it's no longer reality speaking to reality. It's
Uh,
it's just bizarre.
yeah.
It's politically motivated, fully politically motivated, inconsistent with all established science. It's really difficult.
I mean, I'm not even quite sure how to ask this question, but it's like, RFK Jr. and the Maha crowd and these people that you just described. It's like, what's their end goal?
Well, they
Like
are
what would have
personally
to happen for them to
yeah.
be like, okay, we won. This is exactly what we wanted. Just like nobody getting vaccinated for anything and no National Institutes of Health and no federal healthcare system, or I don't understand like what their end game is.
So the I mean, okay, trying to speculate on the motivations of people that are out to end the lives of other people because that is what will happen is a little tough, but it is certainly true that they are all personally benefiting from this. They are personally, financially benefiting from all these grifts. So, for
Of
example,
course, it's always about the grift.
Yeah, Andrew Wakefield, the guy who published the false study, it was retracted, it was rejected on 12 children, that saying MMR, not even something
12?
that contained 12 children, uh, not something that didn't even contain thimerosal, which is what the anti-vax groups started screaming about later. Oh, it's the mercury preservatives. No, that original study didn't even look at mercury preservative containing vaccines. It looked at the MMR vaccine. no thimerosal in it. He was bounced out of all reasonable scientific discourse, of course, as he should have been.
Yeah.
And I think his medical license was revoked because he was doing experimental work on autistic children that had no medical basis or merit, invasive procedures on children. And he was adopted into some anti-vax community in Texas and has been producing anti-vaccine videos. He's made a fine living for himself off this grift that puts children's health at risk. So,
I,
I it's,
y- y-
sickening,
yeah.
actually.
It's like, so I went back, getting ready um, for this discussion, and I watched a bunch of videos of RFK Jr. and some other folks. And like a lot of the people who are like putting their faces out there as a part of this movement, um, they seem to be very, very wedded to the idea that correlation equals causation. And like just as one example, it's like I've watched a couple of interviews with RFK Jr. He was talking about food allergies, and he was like, "I have whatever the number is, 9 siblings and 70 cousins, and none of us have any food allergies. None of us ever had any food allergies ever. But now it's like 5 of my 7 kids all have food allergies. And this all seemed to start around 1989 or 1990. It was, very strongly implying that before 1990, there was no such thing as any kind of a food allergy whatsoever. That it all started in 1990. And he was like, then that's when we started putting aluminum in vaccines. So aluminum in vaccines causes food allergies. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, but even
Yeah,
I am just like, I'm pretty sure that that is not how that works.
that is not how that works. So, there is some tenuous attempt at linking a mechanism in immunology to why people might think this would work, and I've had some very smart people I talk to bring this up to me, and I have to dig through the data and show them the studies. There's
Right.
something called a Th2 skewing of the immune system. Alum-based adjuvants can skew a Th2-based immune response, but that immune response in a vaccine is very narrowly targeted to a particular protein or pathogen. There is no link between vaccination and development of allergies. And if you go through and do a deep dive on that data, there have been a lot of studies, almost as many, if not more, than what's been done with autism and vaccine links. They haven't shown that they've been able to find any link. What is linked to food allergy is atopic dermatitis or eczema. So, children who develop eczema, rashes, or breaches of the skin barrier, they have a massively higher rate of developing food allergies. I can actually pull that number for you right now.
Well, and did
Let's
eczema
see.
exist before 1990?
It did, but
Okay.
I do think there have been increases in eczema and skin atopic dermatitis as well. So that
Yeah.
is, you know, don't use super harsh chemicals on your baby's skin, right?
Yeah.
Um, and lots of
Well,
things can
and
I don't wanna
uh,
go in there. My husband's gonna call me and be like, "What did you say?"
well,
But
and okay, so but I mean, I think another danger of this, I think would be the right word for me to use, is it's like these guys they get like part of one fact that's like actually true, and then they just go nutters with it completely.
yeah.
And do this correlation stuff, and then all of a sudden you're talking, so you're going like, "What? How did we end up here?" But y you know, does RFK have a point in, like, anything that he says? Like the corporate degradation of our food chain and the ingredients in our food and artificial dyes and all of this crap, and or beef tallow. I mean, it just feels like that there's, like, enough little kernels of truth in some of the stuff that he says that it becomes that much more difficult to discredit, like, his overall thing.
Yeah. So, as another creator I've chatted with before said, it's like he get Maha and RFK Jr. get the vibes right. Like everyone wants
Yes.
be healthier, right? They want
Yes.
to live a longer life. They want to, you know, have fewer chemicals in our food. That's fantastic, right? If it's a meaningful thing to remove from your food, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's some stuff that people really glom onto that really isn't meaningful nutrition-wise. But yeah, the vibes are right. So they've co-opted this parental need. They're going after moms who have kids who are
Yeah.
disabled, who've had experienced some life-changing things that they have to deal with. And they're saying, oh, if you would just listen to us and not all these other people, we could have helped you. That is a cult like grift. It is like the recipe, right? Like it sounds good when they're drawing you in. It sounds like maybe they've got the solution, but nothing they're saying is actually based in scientific reality. I've got a really interesting example of that if you want to hear a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think any of these people are particularly dumb. So if you've been following some of the ideas people have put out on social media about there being like a turbo cancer, for example,
Yes.
or yeah,
Yes.
vaccine-driven turbo cancer. Let's get ahead of it
From
and
the
say the
COVID vaccine.
vaccines are causing something that COVID is actually causing. SARS-CoV-2, there's a paper that came out in July of this year, 2025, a Nature paper, highly regarded, difficult journal to publish in, multiple authors out of the University of Colorado, Denver, twofold higher rate of cancer mortality post-COVID infection, all measured prior to the vaccine if you were in cancer remission. So these are people who are 5, 10 years out of cancer remission,
Who had already
but
had cancer.
who'd already had cancer. Cancer reemerges very quickly when you have such a massive inflammatory disruption to the immune system.
From
And
COVID, not
so
from the vaccine.
from COVID, and it was all people that were looked at prior to the vaccine being released versus people who did not get COVID who had the same or similar
Yeah.
diagnosis.
I mean, which, and it's like, I think that's such another massive problem. It's like people look at a headline or they misinterpret a headline or they mangle a headline and they don't actually read like all of the detail that you just went through. They just saying the COVID vaccine causes turbo cancer. And then they start making 50 TikToks about that.
Right, right.
Which
And meanwhile,
again,
if you actually read the study, it's infection.
I mean, so you and I have spoken a few times over the years, and one thing that I've always wanted to ask you about, I mean, when COVID hit, one thing that I was not at all prepared for or expecting was how quickly just massive waves of misinformation and disinformation were just everywhere online.
Yeah.
And I mean, thinking back on that, there are times I was just like, it's a miracle that we got through that at all in this country. And is that a uniquely American problem, or are other countries dealing with that same kind of crap?
No, other countries definitely dealt with the same kind of mis and disinformation. There were massive campaigns around the world to discredit vaccination, to discredit healthcare professionals, to discredit hospital care. People are saying, don't go to the hospital. They're going to kill you on a vent. And you're like, look, man, you don't go on to a vent until you're on death's door anyway. Like the vent, you're going to die unless we put you on the vent. The vent
Yeah.
then gives you at least a 50-50 shot. So no one's just passing around ventilators for fun.
Yeah.
So there was a massive disinformation campaign that was global. Every country, you can still find people who are thinking, "Hey, maybe ivermectin is a good idea,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "That's parasites." There is no known demonstrated mechanism for how it would impact viruses and their replication. 0, just doesn't exist. But, yeah, it happened fast, and it happened because people were desperate for answers, And so there were people out there who were excited to manipulate them and to try to grab hold of the narrative either for profit or societal disruption. There's people that do that. There's groups that do that.
It's such a fascinating thing to me because I think, especially in this country, we've seen such a confluence over the last decade, especially, of people who are incredibly dumb, thinking, believing with their whole chest that they are the smartest person in the room and that they know more than medical professionals about medicine.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
psych
part of me
the
wonders.
psychology behind that will never not be fascinating to me.
I know, right? Part of me wonders how many of them were actually just bots, right, at this point, but, I mean, you and I are reasonably well-read people, and we'd love to hope that they're all bots, but I don't think they are, and the psychology behind it is yeah, it's super bizarre. It's like, "Hey, man, like, I don't go to my car mechanic to cut my hair." I mean, maybe
Right.
there's a great, like, hairstylist/car mechanic, but I don't know them, and I would rather go to my hairstylist for the haircut and the car mechanic for the car, right? Like, go to the people who do this for a living. This is their bread and butter. They know it inside and out.
Well, okay, so, you used a phrase a few minutes ago, "scientific reality."
Yeah.
Uh, I I hear that and I'm like, I don't even know what that is anymore, to be honest with you. I mean, I know where I could go find it, but now I can't go find it from anybody at the federal government.
Yeah.
And so it's like, these anti-vax whack jobs, and RFK, I mean, I looked up some of his quotes, and I watched him say these on video, and they are not taken out of context before anybody gets in the comments. These are complete quotes.
Believe it.
There is no vaccine that is safe and effective. You can't trust medical advice from medical professionals, and nobody should take medical advice from me, RFK Jr., who is now in charge of our Department of Health and Human Services. And it's like, and he has literally no background in science or medicine or research of any kind. He I'm as qualified to do this job as he is because he was a trial lawyer. I mean, two of the main things that seem to separate me and him is that he was a heroin addict for 12 or 14 years. And by all accounts, he certainly appears to be a sex addict as well.
Oh, boy.
I
Oh,
said that.
man.
You don't have to respond to that. But it's like, and now it's like there are millions of people in this country, many of whom are not, like you just said, they are not stupid people,
Yeah.
but they're holding this guy up as their savior.
Yeah.
And I mean, another question that I had for you, it's like, I look at the cuts that he has made, the funding cuts. He nuked a half a million or a half of $500 million in vaccine research. The cuts that he's made to ongoing medical trials that people are a part of right now, that may kill them. I mean, who's the constituency for cutting these things? Who has been saying we need to cut these things? It's like Elon Musk with USAID. Nobody was clamoring for this stuff to go away.
Yeah.
Who's he doing this for?
It's such a small part of the federal budget anyway,
Yeah.
and it impacts so many people directly. And from the people I've talked to that I know at the NIH who are interacting with patients and people in clinical trials, the people that show up wearing the Trump shirts at the NIH don't think it's going to impact them. They really legitimately have said, "Oh, but we're in a real trial. We're doing real work here. This is about real people. Therefore, we will not be impacted." They legitimately think that waste, fraud, and abuse means other people when it is their programs that are being cut.
I I mean, again, it's like it's so easy to point and laugh at these particular individuals because, again, I'm not asking you to endorse this statement, but they are so goddamn stupid and delusional, and gullible and easily manipulated
Yeah.
and cruel. They're just cruel because they're perfectly fine with this stuff being taken away from other people.
Right, or they
Uh,
think other people don't have legitimate research ongoing, and then you say,
yeah,
"Well, wait a minute, what about the kids' cancer trials?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we kinda don't want that to go away," and, "Oh, like, I know someone who had a heart attack, maybe we should look into that." And one by one, like, you can get to people, and they will start to understand how much it will impact them, but they've been taught over and over again, this is about other people, not about them. You will be safe is the line that this administration has been feeding people. And it's just not true when you start to attack basic vaccine science that keeps us all healthy. Some of the other lies that are coming up right now are Marty Makary in the FDA is standing up and saying, oh, these other countries have fewer vaccines. Only by about 4 or 5 vaccines, and those kids get the vaccines later. Oh, they have such a different vaccine schedule. Not really, only by a couple of months. And the rates of disease are not really different. But also we live in more highly populated cities, right?
yeah,
So, and it's not, some of the other countries he's comparing to have less density and better healthcare overall.
yeah.
So, to
But
yeah.
so somebody like him, I mean, that's a perfect example because he's in a high up position of great importance,
Yes.
and it's like he, he's clearly pushing to make significant changes to the vaccine schedules for young children in the United States, right?
Mhm.
Why? Like, what is it in his mind that he believes that he thinks that that is necessary?
Well, he has no training in this area. He's not an immunologist. He's not a pediatrician. I'm just gonna start out by saying that. He's a
Oh my
surgeon.
God.
He has no training. He has no training in this area.
So he's the Cash Patel of vaccines.
They all are
He
at this
has
point.
no training in this area.
None.
Holy shit,
None.
man.
And
I got
and
to tell
Vinay
you,
Prasad, who's talking about, the dangers of the COVID vaccine for children is not a pediatrician, and he's not an immunologist. He's an oncologist. I am more qualified, even though I've never seen a patient, to discuss vaccine science than anyone in those panels as a PhD in immunology,
I'm
or anyone
surprised.
anyone even sitting in those positions. I'm
Yeah,
far more qualified. So it's like I said, the science of reality, like, we are no longer
yeah,
arguing in reality with these people anymore. They are just saying, "I think it must be this way because." So, did you hear about the memo that came out from Vinay Prasad on Friday? So
yes,
yeah,
yes, about the COVID vaccine being responsible for the deaths of 10 children.
right, and there's actually so which children? How was this investigated? Where did this data come from? And they're saying it's from VAERS reports. Well, I decided to go
Oh,
ahead and
come
download some
on.
VAERS reports. Yeah. I did that today. I looked at more VAERS reports, and unless you do a deep dive and investigation, you do not know why or how a child died. So, I went through, I think I found 3 or 4 child deaths from vaccines reported in VAERS for 2025. None were related to COVID vaccines. They were other vaccines. And when you go and read the data as to what happened, someone was co-sleeping with their infant. We know that is really dangerous, and it's terrible, it's sad, but it's unlikely that that was a vaccine reaction. Another person, wanted to report that their child developed a horrible peanut allergy. It happened a year after the vaccine was administered.
So, from what I understand, that VAERS database is a database related to vaccines or something that literally anyone can go in and type something and enter it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whether it's complete fabricated, made up bullshit, it gets into this database. And I
Yeah.
remember when I first learned that about this database relatively early on in COVID, we were probably a year into it, because I kept seeing all of these fart huffing MAGA anti-vax chuds pointing to this database and saying the vaccine's going to kill you. It's going to stop your heart. It's going to, whatever. All these horrible things are going to happen. And but it's in the database. It's in the database. It's in the database.
Yep. So if you pull up VAERS, I remember at the height of COVID, I was looking up all the adverse reactions, and there were like crazy things like got a divorce, adopted a dog, and I got the COVID vaccine, and then 3 days later I adopted a dog. This is my adverse
Right.
event report.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember when that happened. I made an entry into that database. It said I got the COVID vaccine and then I died. But I got better.
oh, little proper Monty Python reference there.
Exactly. I got better.
Got better.
It turned me into a newt.
Yeah, I'm still seeing those comments show up where people are like, I know 3 people who had horrible reactions and landed in the hospital from the vaccine. I'm like,
Right.
oh gosh, what's their VAERS report number? It's actually illegal not to report an adverse reaction
It's
related to the
just
vaccine. It's illegal not to report one. So if someone throws
okay.
that at you, okay, how
Were
can I verify this?
were we always this dumb and COVID just exposed it? Or did COVID just exacerbate a level of dipshittery among the population?
I think we've lived through a period of time where we haven't had a major global pandemic that the population has had to contend with, right?
Yeah.
Not since 1918, 1919, 1920, which was that nasty, horrible version of H1N1. H1N1 is still around, influenza A, that killed, ostensibly by some measures, more people in World War One during that period of World War One than World War One did, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, we haven't had to deal with that as a society or a population for a long time. Now we understand it better because we understand the science behind it better. We have more sophisticated ways of tracking and managing and corralling these viruses, developing vaccines quickly. But I think the public understands less of how that happened
Yeah.
because not science education just stops. Now that said, during 1918, there was an anti-mask league, right? There was,
I remember.
there
Yeah.
were people who
I
were
mean, I
like,
don't
"This
remember,
isn't
but
a big deal."
I saw
Yeah,
videos about it. Yeah.
yeah. There are people out there who said, "Hey, this isn't a big deal. I'm gonna go." I think there's a story of a producer or someone who there was a story of someone who owned a theater in New York, and he was going to put on the opening show and did the opening show. The opening acts were great, blah, blah, blah. He died like a week later from influenza, saying, like, don't worry, I'm not going to cancel this, though. The opening show is going to go on. He died from it. So there were examples of people, ignoring these warnings, dying as they have before.
But it's like in so many ways, I feel like RFK Jr. has become such a kind of a Rorschach test. I mean, almost like Trump. It's like if I meet
Yeah,
somebody and they say RFK Jr. is amazing, I literally know every single thing I need to know about that person.
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I've even met some people who were, still MAGA friendly, if you will, who despise RFK Jr. Like they see him for what he is, at least. So there's that. I heard someone who was kind of MAGA Trump friendly, and this is months and months ago, so I think they've changed their mind
Yeah.
now. But they just sat there and they were like, "Yeah, no, I don't know why Trump would put him in office. He's making Trump look bad." So
So, I mean, all right. So we're, I don't know, whatever, 10 and a half months into this second term for Trump. Um, I was stunned when Trump actually did appoint him, RFK Jr., as HHS Secretary. I thought he was too crazy even for Trump. Um, but I think also, as with Trump, I think Trump and RFK Jr. both have done way more damage at a way faster pace than I was prepared for or expecting.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what do you think about when you think about, like, what are the long-term consequences for what RFK Jr. is doing right now? What are the long-term consequences for this country and people who live here?
They're massive. I mean, top scientists have already started leaving. Top scientists are going to other countries. They're welcome in other countries. They're bringing their research with them. The NIH is effectively gutted. People are not talking about that, but the
Yeah,
NIH under Jay Bhattacharya, who authored the Great Barrington Declaration during the peak of the pandemic, saying just, hey, let it rip. We'll be fine. That would have killed millions upon millions of people more. Not even just from SARS-CoV-2 infection, but because our hospital systems would have been so overwhelmed that if you got in a car accident, good luck, right? It would have been a disaster. And he's running the NIH. People are leaving the NIH in droves, and they're not talking about it. They're scientists. They want to preserve their career.
sure.
They don't wanna appear political, right? Because science is
Yeah,
inherently apolitical, right? The data's the data is the data, but they're gone. Like, they don't wanna work for a clown effectively, and so and they don't wanna work under such uncertainty where their grants may or may not get funded. That's what's happening systemically outside of the NIH. A lot of graduate students are leaving. We're losing a generation of doctorate students, who are here in the US, who are American citizens. Not that it should matter. We get talent from all over the world coming to the US to do science. That's not happening anymore.
yeah,
There are brilliant people all over this world, and they are not looking to the US anymore. The opportunities for US citizens are disappearing to complete their doctorates, to stay here and do good research. They're starting to look overseas. Things like, small business administration grants, canceled. We don't know when they're going to start being reinitiated, so reinvestment in the economy is disappearing as well. So every grant dollar, every NIH kinda, like, funded dollar, depending on how you measure it, returns anywhere between $2 to $8 to the local economy. It's a tiny part of our federal budget, and it's gone. It's not totally gone, but it is being destroyed on many levels and
yeah.
removed. Mil I think it was at least a couple $1 billion cut from that.
It's like, I mean, like that guy that you were just talking about, who was like, "Let it rip." I mean,
Jay Bhattacharya,
I
yeah.
saw multiple educated people during COVID who were saying that, "Just let it run its course." And I mean, RFK Jr. was saying that a few months ago about bird flu, "Just let it do its thing," through bird populations, and then we'll have a new breed of bird flu resistant chickens, which I read an article was like, "Yeah, that's gibberish." But it's like, I feel like a lot of these people are, on some level in their own minds, are like, in some form or another saying, "Yeah, we need a reset. We have too many people. This whole system's broken. We need something that's just going to rip through and maybe take out 20 to 30% of Americans, and then boom, and then we'll be able to just kind of start over and go from there. But we gotta cull the herd." And I feel like a lot of them believe that. They just don't say it out loud.
So whether or not they believe that, that is what will happen. And
Yeah.
you and I are logical people, and we just see it. Like,
Yeah.
you don't vaccinate people, people die. You let bird flu rip and give it all the opportunities to
To
mutate.
mutate.
Meanwhile, no one has eggs anymore because, I mean, imagine that, like 85 to 95% of the chickens in the US, boom, gone. What will that do to egg prices, right? I mean, it's
Wow.
just and it's just ridiculous, and the economy too. I mean, people depend on those jobs. People are farmers, like
Yeah.
anyway, and whether or not they want that, that is what is going to happen,
It's
truly.
challenging for me not to assign a level of malevolence to these people. You know,
Yeah.
like a level of intent, because a lot of these
It's
people
hard not to see
know.
it. Yeah.
I think a lot of these people know what the consequences of all of this stuff are going to be. And I don't know if it's they just don't care, or if they're on, behind closed doors, they're like going, yeah, that's the point. I don't know. I don't know. So,
It's hard not to ascribe malice to it because to you and I, it is so clear. It is so
yeah.
clear. And I think actually RFK Jr., it's clear to him too. Have you ever heard him talk about what he did in Samoa? Um,
Yes.
Children
Yes.
died because he went there and counseled their government to stop using the MMR vaccine.
Yeah.
88 kids died. And then they had to do a mass revaccination campaign. He just disappeared. No responsibility, no accountability. And now he's in charge of our health and human services, attempting to do the same thing. We are about to lose our measles elimination status as a
Yeah.
country.
That was the next thing on my list. And,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I just remember those outbreaks in like East Texas early this year, and
January.
RFK
Yeah.
and RFK Jr. was sending them truckloads of vitamin A,
Well, he was talking about I don't know if he sent them truckloads maybe, but
something like that.
he was definitely telling people, "Oh, vitamin A is a good idea." And I even had to combat a little misinformation from other researchers online who got up and said, "Oh yeah, vitamin A is fine." Hang on. Okay, let me make this abundantly clear. First of all, the only studies showing that vitamin A helped with a measles infection were done in countries where children were nutrient deficient. They were in
Yeah.
starvation conditions. That is the only time. All the studies with vitamin A in countries where children were infected with measles and were nutrient sufficient, they had a normal, healthy diet of any type. Vitamin A did nothing. And children are highly susceptible to vitamin A toxicity. They get plenty of vitamin A in their diet.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot. It is a fat soluble vitamin. Children started showing up after he said that in local hospitals in that Texas area with vitamin A toxicity and liver damage because of
That's
RFK Jr.
I I mean, if it was only the adults who were getting taken out by bad decisions, that would be one thing. But they have kids,
They have kids.
and some of these lunatics believe in having as many kids as humanly possible. So it's like they have a dozen of them and they're not vaccinating them. And it's just, they're the ones that are going to pay the price for this bullshit.
They will.
And so, last question, how to phrase this. Are we going to see the consequences of the things that RFK Jr. is doing now at any point during the next 3 years? Or is it going to be 10 or 15 years from now?
Oh,
Or
we're
both?
we're gonna start seeing it right away. So, he's already for anyone who's not paying attention, um, and keeps following what the organizations under Health and Human Services, let me start again. Hang on. There's just so much, like, my brain just
Yeah,
lit up every way
sure. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. No, I hear
yes.
you.
Yes, we're gonna see it now, we're gonna see it next year, we're gonna see more 3 years from now, we're gonna see it 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now. It is going to all be a problem. So, we're gonna start seeing immediate issues because anyone who's still blindly following the, organizations under HHS, so FDA, CDC, NIH, there are still good people there, don't get me wrong, there are still good people there working really hard to try to get good data out, but they are working in a compromised environment that does not have a basis in science anymore. We're not arguing data against data, we're arguing politics against data.
Yeah,
And so what people are going to be fighting is, hey, if you look at CDC's vaccine recommendations for pregnant and breastfeeding women right now, that page
yeah,
is down as of
yeah,
today. It's been down for months, and it says it's being updated. Meanwhile, as scientists, we know that COVID infection leads to preterm birth and a higher rate of neurological issues
Yeah.
in children that are born with mothers who are COVID infected. And so, there's so many things that are impacting us right now already. We're gonna start to see issues with PFAS chemicals. That was another thing that happened, right? So the forever chemicals, several of them just got approved to be used in our pesticides. That's gonna increase rates of cancer. I am going to do a deep dive on this and post about it because I don't know if I ever
Yeah.
talk about this, but I have a minor degree in chemistry. I know these chemicals inside and
Yeah.
out. I've worked with a lot of them. I'll probably get cancer anytime soon, but no, my
Well,
but
it
I
sounds
know
like
this
we're
is
all going to now.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't understand how the mothers of the MAHA movement are still behind RFK Jr. when all these clean water, air, food acts are being rolled back and we're getting forever chemicals put in our food. Meanwhile, they think vaccines are the problem. Vaccines, you can see all the ingredients. None of them are cancer causing. None of them.
Yeah.
And it is such a tiny amount of things like thimerosal, which was only in a tiny percentage of vaccines, and it was fully water soluble. Tuna has more mercury in it. Like, it's just like more bioavailable mercury that will stick in
Yeah.
your system. So it's we're fighting logic. We're fighting illogical acts with logic, and I don't know how we solve
Yeah.
that.
I don't either because that's
And
widespread across many areas these days. All right. Well, thank you again so much for doing this. Where can people find you on social media? You mentioned a Substack.
yeah, so I am Laughter and Light on TikTok. I'm Melanie_Matthew_PhD on Instagram. And both of those places have a link in my bio that will take you to LAL Science. That's my Substack.
All right. And I will have my brother put those links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I hope you and Dr. Rubin have an absolutely amazing holiday season.
You
And
too.
stay well.
You too. Please do.
All right. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, leave a comment. Please subscribe to my page. Please go follow Dr. Matthew on all of her stuff, and we'll see you guys soon.